I wanted to start out by pointing out what actually happened yesterday, because I've been watching the media and I've not been seeing anybody actually talking about this, which I find frankly shocking. We had a group of people. Well, let me back up a little. We start out with the big lie. All right, the big lie is that there's voter fraud in the United States. There isn't. There's never been any study ever with any credibility at all in the history of the United States, or at least in the history of my lifetime, that shows that there is any kind of substantial number of people who are illegally voting, who are not citizens, or who are voting twice, or who are voting in the names of people who are dead, things like that. George W. Bush spent 2.5 years looking for this. Seven of his federal prosecutors, his U.S. attorneys, refused to drop everything and look for voter fraud, and he fired them. Remember that? It was a big scandal in 2002. And he ultimately had all 100 U.S. attorneys at the top of their list, hiring staff to find voter fraud in their district, in the northern part of Alabama, in the southern part of New York, in the eastern district of Colorado, whatever it may be. He had attorneys on it. And they spent years and millions, tens of millions of dollars trying to find voter fraud in the United States. They examined over 1 billion votes over a decade, and they found 31 cases. 31. And the majority of those were people who didn't realize they were committing voter fraud, in quotes, because they were people who either didn't realize that having moved out of state, they got an absentee ballot and they still continue to vote where they used to live. That was like 1 or 2 of those 31 people. Try to explain it, I can't. But the majority of them were people who had felony convictions, who lived in states where felons can't vote, which is only, about a third of our states. And they didn't realize that was the law in those states. The number of people who voted who weren't citizens was 0. I mean, what person who's in this country illegally is going to show up at a federal, facility or a state-run facility, voting facility, and say, "Hi, I'm here, to vote"? Nobody. So we've got this big lie that the GOP has been pushing for 40 years. Donald Trump took that big lie and put it on steroids. He took a little balloon and pumped it into a weather balloon. I mean, he just into the Graf Zeppelin. He blew this thing way up and said, well, not only that, and he did this 5 years ago. When he started during the primary, when he started talking about how the whole system is rigged. And then 4 years ago, after he won the election, when he said that Hillary Clinton got 3 million votes that were illegally cast. He said it during the primary. When he lost the New Hampshire primary, he said it was because black people were coming in buses from Massachusetts up to New Hampshire to vote against him. These were all lies. And he continues to promote this lie, as does virtually the entire Republican Party, that there was, quote, voter fraud. And therefore there's like Ted Cruz or Josh Hawley or Kevin McCarthy, or yesterday Jim Jordan kept saying, but we have concerns. That's horse crap. They know exactly what they're doing. They're using this myth of voter fraud to pass more and more restrictive laws in the states to make it harder and harder for low-income people, black people, Hispanic people, students, and elderly people to vote, because those people all tend to vote Democratic. It's just that simple. But as a consequence of all these people believing that the election was stolen from them, because they're listening to right-wing hate radio, they're watching Fox News, they're listening to Donald Trump, and they're listening to their elected Republican representatives who are telling them, we should all have big concerns here. These people stormed the Capitol building to kidnap or kill members of Congress. And yesterday, back to where I started this whole rant, and yesterday, 197 members of Congress voted to say that's just fine. You get that? That's just fine. No problem. We're not going to impeach the guy who told the lie, who expanded the lie, who amplified the lie, because it's our lie. is what these Republicans, these 197 Republicans who voted to acquit or not to impeach Donald Trump yesterday in the House of Representatives. That's what's going on. You know, Voltaire, back in 1765, in a booklet, essentially, that he wrote called Questions sur les miracles. I can't speak French, forgive my terrible pronunciation. But basically, questions about miracles. He said, and this is the English translation, I have the French here, certainement qui est en droit, but my French is so terrible I won't inflict it on you. Anyhow, he said, formerly there were those who said, you believe things that are incomprehensible, inconsistent, impossible, because we have commanded you to believe them. Go then and do what is unjust because we command it. Such people show admirable reasoning. This is Voltaire, the 18th century philosopher. Truly, he continues, whoever can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. If the God-given understanding of your mind does not resist a demand to do what is impossible, then you will not resist a demand to do wrong to that God-given sense of justice in your heart. As soon as one faculty of your soul has been dominated, other faculties will follow as well. And all this derives, Voltaire said, from those crimes of religion which have overrun the world. But his point, if somebody can make you believe something that's absurd, they can make you commit atrocities. And that's what happened on January 6th, is people who were believing these 197 members of Congress who continue to tell them the election was stolen, showed up at the Capitol and said, okay, that's it, we're taking over. And apparently it was an extensive conspiracy. And as I said, we're going to get into that with Greg Palast in the second hour. But Ayanna Presley's staff, they had put panic buttons throughout, in every office, because you never know. People can walk in. Yeah, you've got to go through the metal detector, but people can walk in off the street and say, I'd like to speak to my representative or somebody there. And, it could be a crazy person. So they've got panic buttons. Well, as they were moving around chairs and water coolers to try to barricade the doors as the traitors, as the insurrectionists were storming the Capitol, they discovered that all the panic buttons had been removed. I mean, this is nuts. This is insane.